Hello peeps, this is Rich from Cavemen Studios. Today I'm going to talk to you about Kaluga Cluster, our new upcoming FPS, and discuss some aspects of game development in general. Of course, few details I'm going to go through will be obvious to some viewers, and some could require a whole lot more explanation than I have time for, so bear with me. Let's look at our game engine. Here's a fancy container box which I've drawn, but as you can see it looks a bit dull. The geometry seems to disappear when you view it from certain angles, especially directly from front. Of course, the exact angle depends on the object itself and the location of the light source. So, what can we do about it? Let's switch into Blender, which is a free 3D design software, and create an additional texture called Ambient Occlusion Map. As the name implies, it basically tells the graphics engine how exposed each point in an object is to ambient lighting. First, we select only the bright areas of the container and create a new UV map out of the vertices. Because we don't have to care about the actual shape of the object, we can just fill in the whole texture with tightly packed UV coordinates. This is called light mapping, and it can be done automatically. Next, we let Blender bake the lighting conditions to each pixel in the texture. This process is quite time consuming, especially if you run it on a fucking laptop. So I decided to speed up the video to spare your brain cells. Okay, looks like we are done with baking. Let's see how the texture looks like if you just stash it on the object. Not bad. Because the object doesn't have any actual color or texture on it, it looks a bit dark, but that problem is easily solved. Let's see how it displays in the game engine. Moving around a bit, and indeed the geometry is much more distinct now. One could even say it looks somewhat more realistic. Of course, I wouldn't go that far. Anyway, I think it's better. That's not all, however. We still have some more work to do. Our game engine uses object and material names set in Blender to decide how the graphics should be rendered. Adding a new feature implies a change in the pipeline. We have to change our automatic material selection function and extract the new information about AO maps from material names. This is solved by collecting all materials which have AO map into an array and then attaching the materials automatically to objects just like we used to do. Then we proceed to handling AO maps. Let's make a bold assumption and look for the texture map file from the same folder where the object was imported in. The object's material is cloned to prevent the AO map from getting attached to all objects which share the same material. Also, we have to tell the engine to use the second set of UV coordinates when applying AO map. Pump up the ambient texture's intensity level a bit to make it brighter. And finally save all the information about changes we made, to give the user a possibility to turn off ambient occlusions from settings dialog. That was easy. Now let's do the same to Ashley, our new custom-made Adobe Fuse character. As you can see, some unintentional jumping. As you can see, the lighting doesn't look too good on her face. Especially areas around eyes, nostrils and lips are far too bright. This is due to global lighting, which doesn't take the shadows into account. And back to Blender. Let's select all the faces in Ashley's face, like so. This time we'll be using the primary UV coordinates instead of creating a second set of our own. It does waste our texture space because now we utilize only a fraction of the area. But it's also a lot easier this way, since we already have perfectly good UVs pointing to correct vertices on her face and body. A lot faster too, since the faces are so small. Let's see how it pans out if we apply the AO map over her face using Blender. So, even with lower resolution, the results are not too bad. All the problem areas have been addressed. And if we remove the eyelashes, the areas around the eyes are also a lot darker. And under the hair itself causes the ambient occlusion over her head and scalp. And now for the final test, the game engine itself. Yep, okay, her hair doesn't look too good at the moment. There's still some work to be done, but yeah, that wasn't today's task anyway. And some accidental jumping, because why the heck not? Okay, then we are going to update the project manager to keep track of our progress. Fixing some typos while I'm here. And why not fix some more typos while I'm still here? Of course, we have a lot more things to do this week in this milestone, but also in others. For example, for website development, the level editor and so on, they are all in their separate milestones, and all of them get their fair share of our gentle touch and attention. Okay, when tasks have been updated, it's time to guesstimate the losses, meaning I have to log in my work hours. And that's about it. But we are still not quite done with AO maps. It could be nice if we had a user interface to change whether we want the engine to use ambient occlusions or not. It will save a lot of memory on low-end hardware. So I built this fancy dialogue and took me almost 2 hours to get it right. And this is really what the game development is about for me. I want to make things exactly like I see them in my mind. Get the animations, fades and timing right. I could see myself spending an hour just trying to get the exact color gradients in place in these sliders and buttons. Yeah, I probably need to check myself in. Anyway, if you have been, thank you for watching and see you guys next week.